Hello, everybody. I decided to start a new series called DevOps because, that's something I'm busy with in the last days with a project I'm working on. And I was challenged by a thing I needed to do, and that was run a container online. And we have like a lot of options there, right? We can use like the Mesosphere, we can use Kubernetes, right? We can use hyper.sh. And I usually use Hyper. You know, if I want to just offload something very quickly in a Docker container in the cloud, and I don't really want to think about it, and I don't want to do all the whole setup around it, like a container as a service, I used to use Hyper. But now I was looking around for the last weeks to some alternative, right? Because Hyper, let's say, is out of business. And I couldn't find anything else, like anything that's really easy. Like I can just say, okay, boom, like register, let's say I have a local Docker file, and I can just push it online. So in my search, I found Fargate from AWS, right? But the command line interface, to summarize it, is not like ideal, right? So it's really like a pain to get everything running, and the whole overhead of all the security groups and virtual private networks, I don't know what, it's a bit of a pain. So I was searching for maybe somebody built something like a command line interface to it, and I found it, right? So this is Fargate CLI, and let's look at it, right? So Fargate CLI is this little tool, and they have a really nice video essentially like showing how to very quickly essentially get stuff going.
In this video, I'm going to show
it's
you.
like most sales things, right? It's like perfect if you see it, and like it does like this, running task, and then here essentially has it pending, and then after let's say a while it starts running, right? And he has, let's say, a good result, right? So wonderful. So I started doing it and nothing worked, right? So I had to go through this whole process. So I think, hey, maybe I'll make a video out of this, because I think this is a use case for many of us. Let's just like run this for Fargate CLI, right? So okay, so let's look at the code. So it's a Go project, so we can just get it essentially online. Then we can go to the implementation, and here already it becomes very interesting, because like if you see the video and how it works like perfectly. But then if you start reading, let's say, the issues and blah blah blah, because you need to set up all kinds of permissions and all kinds of stuff, then it starts complaining about a security group, right? So what I did, of course, I look at the code to find essentially the default security group, right? And as you can see, I printed all kinds of stuff here. I'm going to remove this right now. But in the end, essentially, there's this module EC2, which is like an implementation. Essentially, this tool made, and inside this they specify what they're essentially doing is, okay, like get the security groups of this account. And then essentially it says, okay, find the one with a certain name. But this is nowhere in the documentation, right? So this saves you like maybe an hour or 2 hours of searching. So we need to make like a security group name with Fargate default, right? And then it is like, it will use that essentially to push the containers to. So how do you do this? Well, let's go to Amazon. So often you will probably have already like a VPC, right? And then on this VPC, right, you can essentially make a security group. And at least that's how I did it. And then I just created a new one, right, which I called Fargate default. And what I did here, essentially, I just opened the whole security hub open, right? So essentially, this is like very permissive. So all traffic is accepted from the outside, and inbound and outbound the same, right? So we don't have to worry about any problems here. So once this is set up, what you now can do is, if you use the tool, so where are we right now? We have to keep it tidy, of course. Okay, so now we've installed it. So let's go back to our original drive, exactly. And so now we have this, right? So we have the security group set up. We have everything essentially. We have our credentials on AWS are set up because these are of course the prerequisites. Yeah, so I exported them as environment variables, and now we can essentially try it, right? So let's try it. So I already experimented before on this, so we can now run, for example, Nginx as with the image at Nginx latest, right? So this is like the example that I do in the script, and yes, I still have some print statements I see. So now it's running the task, right? So if we now do a PS, right? So we replace run between PS and we remove this, then we will see that it's now provisioning, yeah? It's now pending, and I notice that around, let's make it a bit bigger, around 30 seconds or 20 seconds it's running, right? So now it's running. So if everything is okay, we should have Nginx running on this IP, and yes, we can see it's running. So this is promising, right? Because now we're already at the level of, okay, we just want an image, we want to run it very quickly, and it's online and it's running, and we can see it. We even can check the logs, yeah, because this is also handled by the command line, which is pretty neat. Task, logs, Nginx, and as you can see, it prints the logs, and we can put it like in a following mode. So now if we do some requests, right, we should get them in here, and it's pretty neat. So all this is working. If you want to stop, we do it like this, task stop, and now essentially does a round trip. Now what makes it really interesting is if you have essentially a local file, right? So you're working on something, you have a local file, and you want to spin off some processing like offload. So I created this very simple one, right, from Ubuntu latest, and the only thing we do is here we echo hello world to the output just to check the logs. This hello world example of again the Docker file, just as a refresher. So the only thing we want to expect to see is hello world printed here in the log statement, and we want to see the task being provisioned, running, and then deprovisioned, and then essentially it is we spun off a task, and then I've achieved my goal essentially, right? Without too much overhead, I can just like do some heavy computing task, and I can just send it essentially off to the cloud and be on with it. So let's run it. Run the hello world example. We should see here now the building, log in, he builds it, and he pushes it. So now it's running. So here we see it's provisioning. Then it takes about 30 seconds for the task to actually start running. And then we should expect here a nice log output. So now it's in pending state. And we are running. And as expected, we see here a nice output, like colored with essentially the specific task ID, and we see a nice output from hello world, and that's done. So I hope it was valuable for you, but still it's still a little bit messy, right? So if you know any, let's say, container as a service implementation out there, like Hyper was, right, which I really liked, please communicate this in the comments, or an alternative to this, which is maybe a little bit mature or a little bit more sophisticated. And there's also a limit, because I can only use like 4 virtual CPUs per container. And what I wanted to have essentially is maybe something bigger, something like 24 cores or 90 cores, but maybe that's a little bit too much to ask. But in any case, I hope it was very interesting for you, and have fun essentially spinning off these containers.